What is up, YouTube
Hey
family?
guys.
Today we're heading to another video that can be controversial. We are Christian beforehand. If you didn't know, now you know. So, but we are like we're not biased. We went last time. We were talking about the Christian religion.
Oh, because I'm
like
like,
Brits.
I never. For those of you who guys don't know, like I never know. I'm just as surprised as you guys every time we record because I don't know what we're reacting to.
So, this is saying British think American Christians are weird. And the last video, there was some points we agreed with, points we didn't agree with. So I'm pretty sure this video is going to go down the same category. But like I said, we're open-minded to like understanding why they might think certain things are weird, because there are people who carry the Christian belief, but they carry it wrongfully, I should say, indifferently. And so I'm curious to see what, the British Americans have to say, or British people, married Americans, don't come for me. British people have to say about this. But if you're new, hit that subscribe, like, notification bell. Links to other channels down below. Let's dive in.
Okay.
From Hummin' for Jesus bumper stickers to Honk for Jesus displays, from mega churches that hold hundreds of thousands to shirts that say Jesus was the greatest American who ever lived, which is extremely historically inaccurate, but we are.
A little off topic, but I think this is so weird how the day we're recording this is like I wear this shirt. Like, what the French toast?
It's a good sign.
Is it?
Yeah, because yours is good. Yours is just child of God. She's talking about like the American thing. Jesus wasn't American. Yeah. That's what she mean. There's the points that's where we're gonna get to. Christians who they just do too much.
Religion shows up in America in a bold, overpowering, and very open sort of way. It's a religious culture that, especially if you're from Europe, has to be seen and experienced to be believed.
Oh my!
And in this video, I'm also going to explain to those of you who have never seen a giant Jesus Christmas inflatable before how the expression of religion in the US differs from that in the UK. I also wondered, how do two countries that share so much history end up with such wildly different relationships when it comes to religion? Because if you took those Jesus bumper stickers to the UK, you'd really stand out. Even in a full church parking lot, you'd probably be the only one. Let's talk statistics for a second before we get into the history, because in America, about 70% of people identify as Christian, and roughly 40% say they attend a religious service weekly.
That is a high number. I'm not even gonna hold y'all or even lie. I did not expect the number to be high.
No.
I really didn't. I thought it was going to be very low.
It's about 40%.
Yeah, 70 is...
That's good, though.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Over in the UK, only about 38% call themselves Christian, and weekly church attendance hovers around 5%. 5%. That means if you randomly picked 20 Brits off the street, statistically, only one of them went to church last Sunday. In America, that number would be around 8 people. But it's not just about numbers. It's about how comfortable people are talking about it. In America, politicians very readily mention God in their speeches. God Bless America isn't just a song, it's basically how every political address ends. Presidential candidates get asked about their faith like it's a job qualification, and it kind of is. Meanwhile, in Britain, the current prime minister identifies as an atheist, though he says he believes in faith and supports its role in the community. And that sums up the British approach, that a non-religious man could be leader of the government with no qualms, because he's there to do a political job. Whether or not you agree with his politics, I've yet to see anyone being upset with him due to his lack of religious views.
Yeah, this is where one of those ones I gotta chime in on the controversy, because to me, I'm not saying like, oh, I would love for you to be Christian. Yes, I would love for you to believe in the Lord. That is 100% what I stand. But I just would, if a person in the States was atheist and was running the country, I would be a little afraid, because I'm not saying put my religious beliefs, like Bible thump you out there, but I'm saying I would be scared of what he's passing, because when you don't have a belief system and something you follow, I feel like, especially when it comes to children, they like people get to pass in all kind of laws that I do not agree with. And I don't even think you got to have a religious background with some of these laws. And that's where I would be a little nervous on viewpoints, because some people who don't have a faith at all, their viewpoints could be far out. They're like, you could do this, you could do that, you could do that. And I'm like, no, that's common sense. That's wrong.
Yeah.
So,
but I also do feel like in today's world, Christians are looked as a negative.
Yeah,
you know?
They are.
I feel like they've put that word on such an ugly picture. So for me, I just feel like a lot of people don't even claim being Christian, like having that label put upon you, and then just be like, yeah, I do believe, like, I know there is a God and all that other stuff, but I feel like nobody wants to be, in a sense, labeled a Christian anymore because of the
it's funny that you say that, because I feel like that's where people pick and choose when they want to say things. Like, okay, like, let's say a black person go rob a store. This is the best way I can break it down, y'all. And a lot of black, like, don't identify us all in that category as thieves and thugs, right? I feel like Christians have now developed that name, and it's always been that way. I feel like, oh, you're a Christian, so you're like the rest of them. So you can't pick and choose, like, oh, well, I'm not going to identify you because one black person stole. I mean, all y'all like that. But I feel like the Christian race, or the Christian faith gets that, like, oh, because this mega church messed up and Joel Osteen did what he did, all you guys are money hungry, y'all all the same. And I feel like that's where it's like, no, we're not all like that. Y'all can't judge one person off of everybody else. So definitely. I feel like the Christian faith does get beat up like that. Oh, because this person messed up, you all you guys are in the same category. So definitely. I agree with you on that one.
Someone openly declaring themselves as an atheist and being elected president in the USA seems even more out of reach than a woman becoming president. And to understand how we got here, we need to go back to the beginning, because America was literally founded by people running away from Britain so they could practice their religion more zealously than was accepted back home. The Pilgrims didn't hop on the Mayflower because they heard Massachusetts had great seafood. They came because they wanted freedom to worship in a way that wasn't accepted in Britain. As Robin Williams once said, the Puritans were people so uptight, the English kicked them out. This created what scholars call American civil religion, the idea that the country itself has a divine mission. It's why American money says, "In God we trust," and why the Pledge of Allegiance mentions one nation under God. The Founding Fathers might have wanted separation of church and state, but they definitely didn't want separation of God and country. Benjamin Franklin, who wasn't exactly known for his religious beliefs, still said that God governs the affairs of men. Even the least religious founders thought divine providence was guiding the American experiment. Britain, meanwhile, took a completely different path. They had their established Church of England in England, sure, but it was more like a government department than a spiritual movement. It's religion as bureaucracy, faith as civil service. And when you make religion official and institutional, something kind of opposite happens. People start treating it like any other government function, and it almost loses its intensity. And then you have the Reformation. England got Henry VIII, who basically created his own church because he wanted a divorce. That's not exactly the foundation of deep spiritual.
That's crazy.
Right.
And America got wave after wave of religious revivals, starting with the Great Awakening in the 1740s, when preachers like Jonathan Edwards were scaring people into salvation with sermons about sinners in the hands of an angry God. These weren't polite Anglican services. These were emotional, transformative experiences that left lasting marks on American culture. And this shows up today in kind of interesting ways. American Christians often wear their faith literally. Christian t-shirts, fish symbols on cars, WWJD bracelets, which is what would Jesus do if you're not familiar. In Britain, displaying your religion publicly is considered a bit like displaying your income or your medical history. It's personal information that polite people don't broadcast.
Nah. I'm gonna hold you there.
I'm telling you, look at it. I'm like wearing
no,
this
because
shirt.
and there's nothing. No, that's nothing to be afraid. No, what I learned is so. Like I said, we are Christian, and I'm going. Like I said, this video is not. It is. Yes, it is. My faith believes so. God don't want us to be quiet about Him. It's not a secret. It's not a behind closed doors thing. He didn't put us here to say, oh, you know what. You can believe me, but do it behind closed doors. Don't tell nobody about it, and don't go out in the world and show people your stuff. I feel like if you have a problem with religious people wearing God on their clothes, man, have a problem with half of the crap that's on these clothes. There's stuff I've seen on clothes that should not be on clothes. Naked,
boobies,
everything, But once again, the Christian belief ruffles feathers. It does, and it should. It makes someone.
I just feel like it's like the same thing as like not like that, but I'm just saying it's the same thing as you wearing a shirt of your favorite artist or your favorite
your
show.
President that we see hats
or your
everywhere,
president, or your flag. Like I mean, it's.
I just feel like in my faith belief, I just feel like I'm not ashamed of what I believe in and what I follow. So I feel like now I'm not a crazy person where I got all of my cars and all that. Okay, but I will wear a shirt. I will wear a hat, and I have a cross on the side of all my hats. So y'all probably seen in the video. So that's just my niche. That's just what it is. I'm not afraid of what I believe in. So I swear I'm like, you can't throw everybody in that category too with these clothes. Like, oh yeah, they wear like they want to show their faith and they believe in their Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And hey, I'm gonna show it.
Even practicing Christians in the UK tend to be more private about it. And then you have the prosperity gospel, which teaches that God wants faithful people to be wealthy and healthy, and this has absolutely exploded in America. Megachurch pastors fly around in private jets, and congregants are told that their donation is basically a divine investment portfolio. This theology has made some inroads in the UK through churches like Hillsong and other Pentecostal movements, but it runs up against centuries of British skepticism about mixing money with spirituality. The Church of England has historically preached that suffering builds character, not that tithing builds bank accounts. Even the language is different. American Christians talk about having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. British Christians, when they do talk about their faith, tend, as a vast generalization, to use more formal and traditional language. So they might say they attend church rather than they worship at this church, or that they believe rather than they've been saved. A lot of this stems from the evangelical flavor of Christianity that's popular in the USA. Evangelical Christianity is...
I feel like I feel like nowadays every church is so different.
But that's why she's naming all the terms. Evangelical, Pentecostals.
Yeah, but it's so crazy because growing up, I was raised, well, I wouldn't say raised, but I knew the Catholic way, you know? And my mom, we didn't go to church or nothing like that. But I knew about God. Like, she instilled God in us and everything. And like I said, I grew up in a sense knowing it the Catholic way. But then, like, growing up and meeting him and others, and I'm like, wait, there's others? Like, there's other types? Like, I never knew that, like, you know? But they all do have, like, you know, one thing in common as far as, like, you know, him, God, Jesus, you know, all that. But I'm just saying, like, it's so crazy because it's, like, learning about that also.
Yeah. Yeah. But I feel like now, like, we still have a lot of video left, but I feel like we still in that bias category of, like, we're categorizing every Christian in the same... it always goes to the mega church with the Christian religion. Like, we always head to the mega church. Oh, the mega church. Okay, what about the small churches that's preaching regular? But then they get put that pressure on them. Like, oh, the pastor. What about those churches that pastor don't drive the nice car, don't have the big church, don't he just preaching to his congregation? You know,
don't have the nicest building.
My thing that I was taught up on, and what I believe when you say, oh, in private, God said, "Deny me on earth, I deny you in heaven." Mm-hmm. So that's the number one thing I live by. I was very quiet and private about it. Like, oh, I'm not gonna talk about it. But then I start thinking, like, man, I'm going out in the world. I'm supposed to be a vessel. God said, "Deny me on earth, I deny you in heaven." I feel like people that are private, you're denying him. You're scared to tell the people about your belief. But we'll bring up, like, I know UK, you probably don't suffer with this. So y'all system of living is a little different than ours. Us, I feel like we can go out and wear presidential hats. You can wear your favorite, like she said, your favorite artist, but be private about God, what you believe in. That's wrong. That's wrong. So it's like a pick and choose what I want to be blatantly wearing on my shirt about and talk about it. But it's like, oh, your religion, you know what? Don't even talk about it. I don't want God to come tell me you didn't talk about me.
The type of Protestant Christian where one of the core tenets is the duty to evangelize or spread what they believe and actively convert other people. Nowhere is this divide more obvious than in politics, and boy, is it obvious. American political campaigns basically require candidates to perform their faith publicly. They need to talk about their home church, their favorite Bible verse, how their faith guides their decisions. Even candidates who aren't particularly religious know they need to at least pretend to be. I'm not pointing fingers, but there are a lot of American politicians in power who certainly don't seem to be following the rules of Christian religion when it comes to empathy and loving others, but as long as they've said they're Christian, then people let it slide. Barack Obama, who considered himself a Protestant Christian by choice in adulthood, having not grown up in a religious household, still had to deal with theories about whether he was secretly Muslim, because that certainly wasn't going to slide, even though the USA has no official religion and apparently has separation of church and state. British politicians, meanwhile, actively avoid talking about God. When Gordon Brown was asked about his religious beliefs, he called it a private matter. When David Cameron mentioned his Christian faith,
I can see why, though. When it comes to, like, people in the upper, you know, class, not upper class, but, like, what am I trying to say? The word. Like,
in the higher levels,
yeah, in the higher levels survive. I can see why, though, because it can, like, put such a target, or then it's like they run with it. So I can see why they will keep it private. But it's like if you know him, oh my gosh, my mind is drawing blanks. If you know him, like outside of it, like you're close to him, like family, friends, like if you know him and you know what who he believes in, whatever it is, like that's fine. But I can understand why when you're at high up, you want to kind of keep that private. I can understand that.
And I get that. So once again, like I said, we just having a healthy conversation, y'all. So I do this a lot in my men's group. We talk like this, and we have healthy. So my thing is, once again, I go to artists, right? So there's a lot of music out there in the world, right? A lot of artists brings up religion in their music, not being Christian or not. They talk about, you can go back to your oldest rock bands, bring it up, right? Why wasn't there an outrage of your favorite artist talking about it? But once again, if a leader, it should be a private matter, but you're not going to address your favorite artist. You're still going to listen to them. Majority of the people are still going to turn on that band.
Yeah.
They still going to turn on, you know.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a lot. It's
that.
like, it's pick and choose to me, you know. And that's all I'm saying. People pick and choose when they want to. I totally agree. I don't think religion and state should be any type. Politics and religion shouldn't mix at all. I don't think it should be brought up in the church. Politics should come. I'm one of those people that stand with that belief 100%. But there's a pick and choose. That's all I'm saying. It's a pick of the litter of what I want to be offended by and what I don't.
It was considered newsworthy precisely because British politicians don't usually do that. The idea of a British candidate saying, God told me to run for office, might be a political disaster, while in America, it's basically a standard campaign talking point. I never heard of presidents. And this creates some fascinating contradictions. Like we've said, Britain has an official state religion, but its politicians act secular. America has official separation of church and state, but its politicians can't stop talking about religion. And when it comes to politics, this largely influences America and Americans. For example, there are certain medical topics regarding women's rights that within the USA is fundamentally a religious issue. It's seen as that. Churches mobilize voters, and the entire conversation is framed around when life begins according to the interpretations of Christian doctrine. In Britain, when these topics come up, they're typically debated in medical and social terms. The same thing happens, in my opinion, regarding the term I talked about earlier, prosperity gospel. This is the idea that if you are rich, God has blessed you because he thought you essentially deserve it. You followed him enough to be rich. And people often wonder why Americans seem to worship companies and leaders more than the UK. It's because American ideals are based on this religious belief that those people are better people. They are more devoted, and if you aren't wealthy, or if you do need assistance from others, or you've fallen on hard times, then from a religious perspective, what's wrong with you? You must have done something wrong or been a morally corrupt person to end up in that situation. In a way, God has punished you.
Never. And I know, like I said, this is where I say categorize. That's why I feel like this video, man, it's so hard because it's like you categorize these mega, once again, these are mega, if you're not familiar, all these people she put on the screen, nothing against her, we love reacting to her, but all the people that are on the screen is mega churches. And that's where we keep going there, you know. I'm in we on this topic right now. It's so crazy that we're actually learning this in my men's group. God nowhere in the Bible said anybody that's wealthy, that's what he blessed you with. That's because, and then if you're not wealthy, we're actually learning the closer you are to God, the more you struggle. It's harder for you. It's It's way harder. No matter the money or not, you struggle harder because and that's what I'm saying. It depends on who's teaching you. Probably these mega them dudes like them teach that. They probably teach money wealth because that's what they're about. But like I said, you just got to figure out who we're talking to. Are we talking about mega churches? Or are we talking about the Christianity religion and a whole? Because if you're talking about a whole, that's false. Our church don't teach that at all. So that's what I'm saying. This video can go million ways.
And we should too. Now here's where things get really nuanced because Britain is full of what researchers call cultural Christians. People who don't really believe in God, but still consider themselves Christian in some sense. They might get married in churches, send their kids to Church of England schools, and celebrate Christmas as more than just a commercial holiday. It's Christianity as cultural identity rather than active faith. And this cultural Christianity shows up all across Britain. The British still love their ancient cathedrals, not necessarily because they're houses of worship, but because they're gorgeous historical monuments. Canterbury Cathedral gets over 1 million visitors a year, most of whom aren't there to pray. Americans tend to be more binary. You're either Christian or you're not. The idea of being culturally Christian, while maybe personally atheist, doesn't translate as well. British Christmas perfectly captures this cultural Christianity. It's absolutely massive in the UK, but it's largely secular. British Christmas is about family gatherings, elaborate meals, pulling crackers, and watching the King's speech. Sure, Jesus shows up in nativity plays and Christmas carols, but he's not the main event for most. American Christmas, even in non-religious families, tends to maintain much more explicit Christian elements. And the Church of England itself embodies this cultural approach. Anglican theology tends to be pretty flexible, and their sermons are more likely to reference social justice than their American counterparts, which I don't think is a bad thing. It's very personal, and it's not as evangelical. It's not about charismatic preachers standing in front of thousands with impassioned music behind them. It's about the local vicar named Steve who delivers a nice, if not a bit by-the-book sermon about a Bible story and praying for those in need. America, meanwhile, runs on religious revival cycles. Every few decades, American Christianity reinvents itself with a new movement that promises to return to authentic faith. The Great Awakening, the Second Great Awakening, because I guess the first one didn't work, the Pentecostal movement, the Jesus people of the 1960s, the contemporary worship movement of the 1990s, American Christianity is constantly being rebooted like a tech startup because it's what we do best. And this creates a religious marketplace that would honestly horrify most British Christians. American churches compete for congregants with contemporary music, coffee bars, laser light shows, and pastors who wear skinny jeans and quote Marvel movies in their sermons. There are churches that meet in movie theaters, churches that specialize in motorcycle enthusiasts, churches that advertise their services on billboards. British churches, by contrast, tend to value tradition and continuity. A Church of England service today would be kind of recognizable to someone from hundreds of years ago. The Book of Common Prayer is still used in many parishes. The hymns are the same ones people have been singing for centuries, and the architecture deliberately connects worshipers to hundreds of years of Christian history.
So the only question I would have for their style, and like I said, they're asking about our style, so my thing is with the UK, right? If you guys don't, and I'm not saying the billboard thing, but if you don't advertise or talk about y'all private about y'all faith, you don't talk about your old school, how do you reach others? Do we just say, oh, it's just us? Forget everybody else? Like, I'm just asking. Like, that's a question I would want to know. Like, do y'all just walk around like, you know, the church is there. If we don't talk about it, like, y'all know where it's at, but if you want to go, like, so there's no, hey, you know, you should come by church, or, you know, have you been to church? Or it's just like, no, we go there, they don't. Let's move on with our day. That's I mean, like, our way is strange. I feel like that's strange to me. That's strange to me, you know.
But that's their norm too.
Yeah.
So it's like,
but I'm saying, I'm just,
maybe there's like a way that it goes.
I just feel like for me that's just denial. I don't know. This is my personal take. I just feel like it's denial. Like I said, this is a healthy disagree to agree. Just saying, it just feels like denial to me.
This creates beautiful, moving worship services for many, but it doesn't necessarily attract crowds of young families looking for dynamic teaching and killer childcare. And I'll be honest with you, as someone who has been to church in both countries, American church services are far more interesting sometimes. They just are. The laser light show, I didn't make it up. They keep your attention far better just because they're produced more like a rock concert. The pastor has got to be very good at public speaking to get the role, and often there is more budget to literally have professional musicians and those light shows. And that type of swell of music and emotion and charismatic preaching is meant to keep your attention. Remember, the evangelical movement. It's all about converting you and others and spreading the religion. The Church of England services I've been to are nothing like this. They're much more subdued, and yes, maybe not as interesting from a performance standpoint, but actually, that's the thing. Religion in the UK isn't meant to be a performance.
Yeah,
and the education systems in both countries reveal these different approaches because in America, there are thousands of Christian schools. We also have homeschool curriculum that teach young earth creationism and ongoing battles over whether evolution can be taught in public schools. Faith-based education is seen as a legitimate alternative to secular public schooling, and many American Christians actively seek out educational environments that will reinforce these religious beliefs. Britain has plenty of faith schools too, but they operate differently. Church of England schools are often considered among the best state schools available, and plenty of non-religious parents try to get their kids admitted. These schools teach religion, but the goal is religious literacy, not necessarily religious conversion. And then we have the university experience, which differs dramatically too. American Christian colleges and universities are massive operations with their own accreditation, sports teams, and degree programs. Liberty University has over 100,000 students. Oral Roberts University has a law school and a medical school. These aren't just Bible colleges. They're full universities that happen to require chapel attendance and have honor codes based on Christian morality. British universities, meanwhile, might have Christian societies, but the idea of a major university organized around Christian principles would seem crazy. Oxford and Cambridge, which were founded to train clergy, are now thoroughly secular institutions where religious studies is another academic department. And as I've mentioned, one of the most distinctly American religious phenomena is the prosperity gospel, and understanding British reactions to it really illuminates the cultural divide. American prosperity preachers like Joel Osteen, Joyce Meyer, and Kenneth Copeland teach that God wants faithful Christians to be wealthy, healthy, and successful. They encourage tithing as a form of spiritual investment, promising that God will return financial gifts with interest.
Yeah, I'm against all their styles. I know about all three of these. That's why I already knew when you went to his mega churches. Those guys are that's them, but they still got a following. So I think where I messed up as my faith base, I should have said this. Those churches, no. But at least, like, the UK, like, we're comparing UK to Christian. Like, they're in church. That's all that matters. As long as you're preaching the gospel, the right gospel.
Yeah.
You know, that's all that matters. Like, when she was comparing, like, light shows, and, like, I'm a drummer. And I told y'all, for those, I play for my church. And if you go to my Instagram, you go to my other channel, you'll see me on there. Worship is part of the Bible. Yes, did they have lights back then? No, but we're in modern times now. Like, they're trying to reach other people and reach more. So that's the goal. And we're not up there giving a concert. Like, I don't go up there and we're like, oh, let's do this. We up there, let's give a concert. No, we up there doing praise and worship. So, like I said, I just feel like on the context, like, you gotta, like, how you put it out. We gotta stop categorizing every church as the same. We gotta stop categorizing people as the same. And everything is different. Yes, because 3, 4, 5 bad apples don't make everybody else bad apples. You can pick those, clip them off your tree, and your other apples will still be fine. So that's what we got to stop doing. And I feel like sometimes we get in this, and this is where it's at. It's like every church is the same as these dudes. Nobody's Joel Osteen. Nobody is that other guy. Like, there might be some out there, but my church we attend, we ain't nowhere near like that. You know, so yes, we have the lights. Yes, we have the stage. But
I wouldn't even say we have the lights. We do not have lights.
We do have lights on stage.
They shine. We don't have lasers.
But we ain't got lasers and nothing like that.
Ours
but
shine.
Our church does not push none of this narrative at all. Like, we don't push none of it. So,
and if others do, like, hey, that's just them. Yeah, and if you like going to churches like that, then hey, that's how you get your word. That's how you get your word.
As Christians, we gotta sit here and say, just be happy that people are in church.
Yes,
no matter, like I said, if it's bad, then you could be like, oh, you don't need to be sitting there. That's bad. But if they're in church in their style, they're praising the Lord and getting the word, there should be no conversation. So that's why I have to correct myself when she said, oh, they go to church like that. Okay, they in church. I should be happy because they're in church. So if the American church, if that's what got the people in there, hey, they in there, okay? The more souls, the merrier.
This theology has found some foothold in Britain through churches like Hillsong, but it runs headfirst into centuries of British Christianity that views wealth with suspicion. The Church of England, as I've mentioned, has historically taught that suffering builds character and that the wealthy have moral obligations to the poor. British Christianity inherited a lot of medieval Catholic ideas about money being spiritually corrupting. When American prosperity preachers visit Britain, they often have to significantly tone down their message. What works in Houston megachurches, promises of financial breakthrough and material blessing, sounds almost blasphemous to British ears trained on hymns about taking up crosses and following Christ through valleys of suffering. And British Christians are not likely to see poverty as a sign of insufficient faith. Now, the class dynamics play into it as well because American prosperity theology appeals across economic lines because it promises upward mobility through divine intervention. British Christianity, even in its most enthusiastic forms, can't quite escape the class system that sees flashy displays of wealth as rather vulgar. Even successful British Christians tend to practice what researchers call stealth wealth, having money but not flaunting it in ways that American prosperity preachers would consider normal expressions of God's blessing, i.e., they're not showing up to church in a Lamborghini. American religious architecture reflects American optimism and innovation. The buildings say Christianity is relevant and contemporary and ready to meet you where you are. Please come join us. British religious architecture reflects British tradition. These buildings say Christianity has been here for 1,000 years and will be here for 1,000 more whether you show up or not. The megachurch phenomenon is uniquely American for this reason.
Oh my gosh.
Churches with 10,000 plus members, and that's on the low end. Professional quality production values and campuses that genuinely rival shopping malls. They simply don't exist in Britain. The closest equivalent might be something like Holy Trinity Brompton in London, which has maybe 4,000 members and is considered absolutely massive by British standards. Then you've got the celebrity pastor problem. American Christianity has created an entire ecosystem of celebrity pastors who write best-selling books, host television shows, and build personal brands that extend far beyond their local congregations.
Like, are we learning about you or Jesus?
Become household names, appear on talk shows, and influence national conversations about everything from politics to personal finance. And this starts to create further questions and moral dilemmas. Are you now in this role for the love of your religion and devotion to spreading the word, or do you just want a new mansion? Britain has well-known Christian leaders too, don't get me wrong, but they operate differently. Anglican bishops might write thoughtful books about theology or social justice, but they're not building media empires or developing signature catchphrases. The Archbishop of Canterbury is famous in the way that the Director General of the BBC is famous. People know the position exists and might recognize the current occupant, but it's not celebrity culture. And this difference reflects deeper cultural attitudes about authority and charisma. Americans are comfortable with dynamic religious leaders who promise to change their lives through powerful preaching and personal revelation. British religious culture is more skeptical of charismatic authority and more comfortable with institutional leadership that emphasizes careful thinking over emotional appeal. Looking ahead, both countries are dealing with declining religious participation, but they're responding differently. American Christianity is doubling down on distinctiveness, becoming more politically engaged, more culturally combative, and more insistent on its unique role in American life. The response to secularization is often to become more religious, not less. British Christianity is taking almost the opposite approach, becoming more inclusive, more socially progressive, and more willing to accommodate secular values. Both approaches have their challenges. American Christianity risks becoming so politically partisan that it alienates potential converts who don't share conservative political views. To be honest, it already has. This is one of those areas that many non-Americans don't understand when looking at American political decisions and votes. If religion is the most important thing in someone's life, and it is so mixed in with politics that voting for the other side would almost mean that you are going against your religion or defying God, would you do it? Most people wouldn't. And the fact of the matter is that, objectively, the Republican Party is seen as the Christian party by many people in the States. It's known as the Christian right. The evangelical population that make up a large part of the US also heavily lean towards the Republican Party when it comes to voting. When actually, if you zoom out, there are about equal percentages of religious Christians in both major parties. But it's become so intertwined that there's almost no untangling it from the Republican Party, and many wouldn't want to. But is this now adding up? Europeans often look across the pond to American politics and go, what? How? That person? This person? What's going on? But A, Americans are much more religious than other countries and will often not vote against their beliefs on very specific issues, even if they don't like the person in charge or other policies. And B, prosperity gospel tells us that wealthy people or people who claim to be wealthy are somehow more divinely gifted than us. And C, chanting emotional swells of patriotic or religious music and appeals to God work much better in the USA than in the UK, and some people take advantage of this to appeal to their base and gain political trust. What's clear is that these differences in the USA and UK religious culture run deep, and they show no signs of disappearing. They're rooted in different historical experiences, different cultural values, and different assumptions about the role of religion in public life. Understanding them helps explain not just why Americans and Brits approach faith differently, but why they approach community, authority, tradition, and politics differently too.
I feel like for me, I can see why the Brits are like that, because I feel like it goes back to like how they're raised.
Yeah, they're culture, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like for us, it's like we're raised a certain way to, you know, do certain things or whatever. But for them, it's like, to them, they might feel like they're doing a lot. But to us, it's bare minimum because we're so used to overtopping it, you know? So I feel like they're still doing what we're doing. They're just doing it their way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't feel like it's a bad thing at all, but
well, that part, yeah, I like that like you said, like that, yeah, they're doing it their way, and that's where I thought this video was going. You know, like how they do it and how we do it, but it went the way I didn't think it was gonna go.
Yeah,
that everybody else go.
Yeah,
and that's comparing the megas to the smalls. So, and I get it. You know, the megas have made a bad name for, you know, regular churches, and the mega pastors and the ones that, you know, she said the celebrity ones. They have created a bad name for the Christian because they money, and then they prove themselves time in when they come, like they get called out and then they do something at one of their sermons and it just answers to make like, we're right. Like this pastor just got in trouble for asking for $2,000 to be donated. And the lady didn't have $2,000. She gave $1,100 and he made a big old deal out of it. See, it's like you're answering what they're talking about. So, but once again, it's just like we got to separate who we're talking about. We're not talking about the full Christian belief. We're talking about this one church or this particular individual. So, like I said, this conversation going forever.
Definitely.
But like I said, I'm how we are. I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed to mention it. I'm not ashamed to talk about what I believe in. But I won't like. I'm not gonna get on here and make you guys be like, oh, if you don't, you know, and blah blah blah. You know, don't even click. You know, we're not that type. I'm just more or less like, I'm not ashamed to talk about what I believe in, what I follow.
And if you feel you don't believe because of whatever reason, like, hey, that's
not even gonna come up here and crucify you. We love you, you know, and that's how I was raised. Like, raised on love.
I have family that don't believe. I mean, I have friends, you know, but it's just like I'm not here to sit here and like that saying Bible thump you and everything. Like, if and when, I'll be here.
Yep. So this is a good video. Like I said, we good at over here with controversial, like the last two we did. We already did two like this.
We can agree to disagree.
Controversial topics. And like I said, I gave shout out to UK people because I love the way you guys responded and answered to our disagreements and agreements. So hopefully this video does the same. I know this topic is a little bit more sensitive.
It's a little rocky.
It's religion. But I find it cool to talk about it, you know, and I'm glad it come up. We got to see different points. So hopefully we can have healthy disagreements and agreements down below and not go crazy of hating each other because we disagree.
Let's not do that yet.
Let's just be like, all right, this is what I feel, you know, blah, blah, blah. Simple as that. And we can move on.
Heart.
So thank you guys for tuning in with us. Once again, this video went long. It was a long topic, but we'll see you guys on the next one.